we want to review.
If you want to review, you can actually get on the Facebook and look at our YouTube site, and it'll be on there. So if you want to review again and again and again, that'll be better. Okay. Well, doesn't matter if the class is small, but still, you can ask your friend, family, doesn't matter. And I'm happy that everyone's here tonight. And tonight we're going to be talking about signing time, introduction to sign language. Many people always ask me, where does that come from? Well, and what it is. Well, there's some good answers, and if you have any questions, you can ask me that. And first of all, American Sign Language is a language that incorporates mime. And if you go out to a large city, you see black and white costume, themselves are mimes, very, very quiet. They move using their body and hands and face, or a picture-like image to express and convey abstract ideas and concepts. Also, ASL uses space movement to show the meaning. So it's like when you're out there and you see a person trying to show a facial expression, you can understand and easily read their language. But here in the deaf and hard of hearing world, we have people that look immediately, like if you're curious, like, they can read your face expression. Or if you're upset, they can still read your body language. So, you know that 90% of the deaf have hearing impairment. Now, this is very interesting. Most people out in the world don't even know that. I would say about the same, actually 10% of the deaf parent have hearing children. So we call them CODA. We're known as children of deaf adult. And now, people out in the world, such as firemen or police officer or EMS, their parents are deaf. So immediately, if they see a deaf person, they will sign. And they know, well, how do you know signs? That my parents are deaf. So they're known as CODAs. It is used in Canada and around the U.S. So most people ask me how many sign language are there. To be honest, there's more than 400 sign language. From New Mexico to Africa to England, and BSL, British Sign Language, ASL, Spanish Sign Language, Japanese Sign Language. There's many of them, and it's really easy to pick up. I mean, to me, I can find out, well, if I see a person signing, I can practice myself. And that's how I became, skilled with sign language. I learned from my friend in Chickasha, Oklahoma, and she taught me sign language, and then I went to camp, Deaf Christian camp, learned from there, and then from there on for almost, I would say about 20 years now, I've learned. So it's easy. Once you read and practice, you get it good. It's almost similar like French sign language. So if you go into France and you look at them, they're similar the same way. So people in Africa or France or Canada, doesn't matter, they can be the same way. But they practice English online. And that's what we'll be using for a few Wednesday night, is we'll be using the book, and I will hand out and email you the attachment, or I can hand out the copy and let you know that we'll be practicing on that part. The next 2 Wednesdays we'll be teaching, I'll be teaching ABC and 1, 2, 3. It's really simple and easy, and we'll practice together. And then next month we'll start from the easy words, and that will be in these books. And hopefully the people out of the world will be able to see what we will do. Okay. the ASL and culture are changed from generation to generation through homeschool and deaf adult. When I talk about homeschool, it's not like a normal when you stay home with mom and dad. They have a special school where they stay, and the students will stay there and learn the ASL at that certain school. For example, here in Oklahoma, we have Oklahoma School for the Deaf. Many of the deaf parents and the hearing parents will send their deaf children there and learn from there. I was raised in Altus, and I had to go to school at JBS or Jane Brooks School for the Deaf in Chickasha, Oklahoma. That school really is mainly oral. If I sign, I get in trouble. So I have to be careful of what I'm trying to say, if that's how I... No, school has been shut down and moved to OSD. So it's still running a little bit, but yeah. And finally, one of my teacher, I saw her, I met her at the Capitol in Oklahoma City. It was a shock. She started saying, she said OSD must sign and talk as well. Now, facial expression, head movement, eyes gaze in ASL is really important. You can't sign like this, because if you start signing, they're not gonna read your face. You have to understand what the deaf is trying to say. If I turn my head this way, you can't see what I'm saying if you're hard of hearing.
You say the face is 80% of the language itself.
Right. So the face expression is very, very important for all of the deaf people. No matter what. If you're standing there and you're saying, I can't sign, or something like that, they can read lips. They were raised for reading lips. And there are some people out there who have mental challenge problems. They invent their own sign. So we have to do straight ASL. So they break down different words. So they cannot read like this. So we have to explain like facial expression, sign, easy. They can understand that. And we have a few people here that in the deaf church that are mental challenged. So while watching another person sign, it is appropriate to focus on the signer's face. They can focus on the hand, but it can be quick. And sometimes you have to slow down, make them understand. Fingerspelling is normally given names of people, places, and identify a thing or movie title. So if I say finding fish, you don't understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about Finding Nemo or different types of titles of movies. So we have to spell it out so that way sometimes the deaf will invent their own sign. So most of the popular ones are the drink sign. And I went into Central America and I said I wanted Dr. Pepper. They had no idea what I was talking about. I said, you don't know what this means? They said, no. I just spell it out. And they go, Dr. Pepper. And I'm going, oh, their sign is different here from UF. So you have to pick up their different sign. And yes, all around the US have different sign languages. So I get stuck with Texas, Oklahoma, and Alabama. So I will kind of put it together and make my own way, and many of the deaf will understand that. Deaf people prefer to be called deaf, not hearing impaired. So that's a big issue today. If you say, are you hearing impaired? They get upset quickly. Really, I would call myself hard of hearing. But if it's deaf, they would go, I'm deaf, or I'm deaf. But they do not like to be called deaf and dumb, because they are not. That right there is bullying, and it will spread out, and these deaf people will fight. And I've seen that happen before. most effective way of communicating with a deaf person is using sign language or an interpreter. So most of the time, if you are here at church or out there in the world, you can write on paper, it doesn't matter. But sometimes they prefer with finger spell or just straight sign language. But if the person's very patient enough, then they can sign slow with finger spell. So you should always use your real hand to sign. If you're left-handed or picking, choose one to be as your good hand and being consistent. So for example, if you're left, then you have to sign one hand. You can't do that. They're not going to be able to understand. Now if your arm's in a cap, then they understand. You can spell out. But if you can sign both ways, that's awesome. When I can sign A, B, and C, it's really easy with both hands. But I prefer using my right, because I write with my right. It doesn't matter what hands you use, as long as you use both of them. Because if you use one, it's going to be difficult for a deaf or a hard-of-hearing person to understand. And it doesn't matter if a person who has a problem with speech, they can learn sign as well. I mean, I would like to see people come in here and learn more. Fingerspell loan signs are 2 of the 5 letters commonly used to have their own unique movement, patterns of movement. These movements are different from normal finger spelling. Instead of using the word, have become an ASL sign. So for example, dog, okay, the car, bus, bank, early. Now, these finger spells, you can finger spell these. These are easy, simple 5 words. So if I go dog, okay, car, bus, bank, or early, I can use my one hand. So, but that's the part right there. What you did is like early. This is one hard part. When you see a fingerspell word, you should try to see the shape and movement pattern of the word rather than trying to see each letter. So for example, if you see dog, you can do dog, because it's D right there, dog. So it's a different way. But finger spelling, keep your hand slightly to the right of your face, below your chin. Avoid bouncing each word. They're not going to go, I don't understand. It's almost like a bouncing ball on a song. It's hard for them to understand. You try to keep it spelled. So if I'm signing, my name is the, I'm signing the low, not like that. So you would have to go finger spell low below your chin, and it's easy to use it that way. Finger spelling is not a substitute for a sign. If you don't know a sign for a word, try to act it out, point it out, or describe, gesture, draw. Finger spell just used to be at the last thing. So I'm trying to learn, I can't find a remote. So I'm trying to say this right here, this. Then they say, oh, that's remote. Easy. Instead of remote, because that's a long time, and many of the deaf won't have patience with that part.
How you use it, or, you know, what does it look like?
Well, you can use it in different ways,
Well,
but
you use that to
Yeah.
describe it.
yeah,
If you don't know.
if you're trying to go like this, and they say, oh, you're talking about remote, or if you're needing to write, so you take your finger and you go like this, they go, oh, you're talking about writing. So when they see it, they'll understand what you're saying. Remember about organizing spattle when talking about people, place, or things that are not an immediate environment. You need to establish a specific location for a place. Name it. then you can refer again by pointing at the same location. So for example, I need you to meet me at a church. Okay, which church? Okay, Park Plaza. Okay, Park Plaza, I'm Park Plaza. Where is the church? Park Plaza Church of Christ. Then they say, okay, there's two different buildings. There's Park Plaza Ministry Center, and there's Park Plaza Church of Christ up there. Which one? Ministry Center. You have to be exact in the same way here in person. To answer a question with a negative response, you could shake your head or not sign no, answer the question with the correct information, or you could sign nothing. So if a person asks you, is today Thursday, go no, they'll understand. You don't have to say no, or I just tend to say nothing. When they see my head go like this, that means they know it's not the right answer. Or if I go like, no, not really, but that's a negative way. But the typical grammar for ASL is time, topic, and comment. Now, this is very true. We call this our deaf time. Just recently when we ate dinner and I was trying to set up everything, I said, okay, I know I had class at 6 o'clock. I'm now late. I was supposed to let you guys go at 6:45. It's now 6:50. Wow. That's the deaf culture's time. So if you say, I need you to meet me at 11 o'clock, don't expect them to come at 11, exactly 11. They tend to come about 11:15, 11:30. That's the deaf culture's time. They will put it off 15, 30 minutes. How do you simply give a deaf person's attention? Just recently you saw it, like, when you can do that, like, wave at people, or when they feel that, they'll, okay, I feel something. So,
But only a deaf can light, right?
Most of the deaf people, when people are walking around here, will go like that, and they'll go, okay, time to sit down. So, others like use the most of the flashing of light or stomp on the floor. Or to go out, touch the person and say, hi. So what would you do if you need to pass between two people signing? It is appropriate to walk between the signer. As you're doing that, lightly, excuse me, and then go past the signer. Instead of just walking right through. It's rude to interfere with signing. So I would just, sometimes we are patient, we have to wait, see you later, and then we continue on signing. And so it's appropriate to bow your head down and just say, excuse me, and just move on. And it will be easier for the deaf person to understand, oh, being polite, okay. Many people ask me, are deaf mean? Not really. There are many people out there being nice. When they meet the first time, they share the information about what school they go to, so that way they can establish their information to the deaf community. So if a person goes to meet the first time, they say, what school did you go? Oh, you go to ASD, Alabama School for the Deaf? I go to OSD, Oklahoma School for the Deaf. Then they share with the group, they say, you know this person? Go to ASD or OSD? Then they will share with the community out there, they get together. Meet friends and old friends, new friends. They strengthen their social meeting by getting involved with the Deaf Club or activities such as activity, tournaments, churches, picnics, and different things. And that's one of the activities you've been involved in was our Deaf Jab Snack. You know, get involved in that and enjoy that. We also have a silent dinner that's coming up soon. I have a calendar here that I will pass out to you so you can look at what other events we have here. When you meet the deaf person for the first time, I'm sorry, you want to You want to make sure that they will want to know your first and last name, whether you are deaf, hard of hearing, or hearing, who's teaching you the language and culture, and where you're studying, and why are you learning ASL. So when you meet the person, they're going to go, who are you? You give them your first name and last name. They want to know who's teaching you. And that's why 9 just recently, who's your teacher, or how did you know ASL? That's what most deaf people tends to do that. Name sign should be earned by a deaf person. Hearing people, I'm not saying you can't. Because if you do that, they're going to say, who are you? That's your name sign? They want to ask you what your job is. So, for example, Linda, she's the secretary, so we go Linda, because she's the secretary. The same thing with our secretary, Christy. We do Christy. Now, my sign name is this. Why? Because many people call me Deaf Thoro. So I'm here to say today, but not really. So there's many hearing people who have their own sign names, and they go, oh, okay. Only a small percentage of parents learn sign language. Really, many of the deaf children develop strategy in communicating with people who does not sign. Some ways are pen and paper, gesturing, lip reading, speech, and taking their own sign or home sign or using an interpreter. So, some of the strategy to communicate with a deaf person, let the deaf person know the sign. Let them know that there are some communication ways you can use. Avoid talking or voice in the presence of a deaf person without signing. And avoid eye dropping. When you look down the floor and go like this, they want to look at you. They don't want to see this. They want to look at you. That way they understand what you're saying. They want to read your lips as well. When signing numbers 1 through 5 should be palm in. We'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. We'll be practicing on that part. So in ABCs as well. So I'm hoping that everyone can be very patient with me. So this is the introduction. That's all it is. In 1817, American School for the Deaf has started in Hartford, Connecticut. And later, 1864, the first university for the deaf was established in Gallaudet. And it's now popular. Many of the deaf go over there. Nine has been there, Carl Moore's been there. Many of the deaf that are here tends to go to Gallaudet.
Where is this?
This is in New York, right?
No,
Gallaudet?
DC.
DC, I'm sorry. DC. And what's funny is that Abraham Lincoln supported Gallaudet. And so the president said, go ahead and name that college Gallaudet. And really there's many popular movie stars and actors and performers, everything. They all go to Gallaudet, and they've learned many ways.
Gallaudet's the only university in the world
Right.
that is for the deaf. Other universities have deaf programs, but Gallaudet's the only deaf university.
Now, we'll be practicing on this in 2 weeks. Handshake, location, movement, and orientation. We'll be working on that in 2 weeks. Now, many schools use a philosophy called total communication, or TC, meaning every type, any kind of communication, including ASL, lip, or oral speech, are taught. So, my school that I went to, Chamber School for the Deaf, is total communication. But the teacher preferred communication only, or oral. So they would teach us, and it's really hard. Then later I picked up many of the signs, and then when I moved to Alabama, this is different here. I have to put that together. And I used to live in Texas, and I have to put that together. And when you add more, the more you add, the easier people know the sign. And the first Deaf Institute, Rural des Sourds, or Royal Institute for the Deaf and Mute, was established in Paris during the 18th century. So it's very interesting. And finally, Lawrence Clark became the first United States deaf sign language teacher. And it's now the 4th most used language in the United States. So, I'm sorry, it's now 7 o'clock, and I want to thank you for coming here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you guys your copy of this, and then those who are at home watching the video can ask for me and email me, okay? And I want to thank you for joining the class tonight.